Hey y'all, I'm Cal. Let's get messy.
Hello, hello. Welcome back. So, today I wanted to talk about something a little personal. I know I've gotten personal on here before, but this is deeply personal. And I think it's very relevant for what we've seen happening around us in the media over the last couple of weeks. And today I wanted to talk about a person who shaped my life in such profound, immeasurable ways. And it's not somebody that probably most people would expect. And that is my cousin Kim. So, backstory, Kim and I were about 3 months apart. She was 3 months younger than I was. And we grew up together. And I would often spend summers at my aunt's house just hanging out, playing with Kim. The thing about Kim is she was born, and I don't know what the terminology for her diagnosis was, but it was profound intellectual disabilities. So even by the time she passed away at age 47, she had the mental capability of, I would say, a 2-year-old, probably. But Kim was a hoot, y'all. That girl smiled all the time. She was the friendliest person that you could ever hope to meet. All she wanted was to show you her love and to be loved back. And I think about her a lot, even over the years where I didn't visit her as I should have. She did live a few hours away. Her mother eventually had to put her in a home that was fortunately near her house so she could see her every day. Um, and in my adulthood, had kids and didn't visit the way I should have. But she was such a defining person for developing my heart. Um, I can remember even as a very young kid, we would go out and I was so protective of her. If I would see somebody looking at her the wrong way, not even ugly, just out of curiosity, oh, it sent me flying as a little kid. And I would give the stare back, like, don't mess with her look, because I felt like I needed to protect her. Right. And, I can't speak to what it must have been like for her mother. I've never been in that experience. I'm sure there was a lot of grief. I'm sure there was a lot of sadness for her child that she loved so much, not having the life that she had imagined. But I also know, and I would venture to guess if you asked her, she might not have changed a thing because I can guarantee you if the impact that she had on me is what it is, I can't even imagine what the impact on another would be, and their heart and their love. And I just wanted to share, how growing up with her helped shape my heart for the disabled community and why it is so important that we remember and value and love and appreciate every single person, regardless of how society might measure their worth, you know? So, for those of you who never had the pleasure or privilege of meeting Kim, she loved to go to church. She loved dogs. We would go to the park and she would just watch the horses and the people walking around the park. She loved to people watch. And she had a sweet tooth, which, we had in common. And I can remember I would walk in the door and she would just bounce up and down. She had very tight hamstrings, so walking for her was difficult. And she was always sitting on the floor with on her knees. And she would just bounce up and down with delight, and her eyes would just glow, and she would laugh and scream, and it was so infectious. I mean, it was just irresistible. You had to hug her or kiss her or talk to her or take her hand, and it just every time I think about her, my heart just absolutely fills up, and then I get full of rage for the talk of, you know, words like were used recently, destroying families. It's just inexcusable. It's inexcusable. A few days ago, I went back and read Kim's obituary. Like I mentioned, she passed away about 3 or 4 years ago, and it described her as a very friendly and determined personality. And that is true. She was very, very determined. But what it doesn't describe is how pure and unconditional her friendliness and her love was. There was no judgment, no expectation, just genuine joy in being around other people. So, growing up with Kim, it fundamentally shaped my perspective on the disabled community. When you love someone with a disability, you don't see the disability first, right? You see the person. You see their joy and their struggles and their unique personality and the way they experience the world differently. And, sometimes you realize that their way of experiencing it might be more authentic than our own, right? It's pure. There's no expectations there. There's no give and take. It's just give. And him taught me to look past surface level differences and connect with the humanity and everyone. When I think about her now in my struggles with communication that I've been working through, it just reinforces what I continue to say is that communication doesn't require words. Understanding can transcend conventional methods of expression. We just have to look for it in different ways. You know, she showed me that patience isn't just a virtue, it's a necessity if we want to connect genuinely with others. Back to my main point, other than I have the opportunity to put Kim's name out there to be remembered for all of eternity, I hope. The truth we cannot quit talking about is that everyone here on earth serves a purpose. I don't care if they don't pay taxes. You know, they contribute in different ways, right? And that kind of thinking is so dangerous and wrong and scary. It reduces human worth to economic productivity. And I cannot think of a more shallow measure of a person's value. We often hear people say, and I've said this many times, if I could just help one person or change one person's life, that would be enough. Look at Kim. She did that. And I know for a fact that it wasn't just me. And I know for a fact that it probably was not just her mother either. And yet somehow she's less valuable to society in so many people's eyes. And if I can have the impact on one person that she did on shaping my entire life, my God, what a success I'll consider myself. You know, e- even without trying, all she had to do was exist in her purest form. And she literally shaped or helped shape my entire heart and my entire way of thinking and my entire way of viewing differences in others. And so I really wanted to emphasize today that, even after someone like Kim is gone, their existence continues to have a lasting impact on the world, on my life while I'm still here, and now, hopefully, through my words on others. My perspective, my compassion, my understanding of human worth, all of these were shaped and formed and nurtured and developed by my relationship with her. I start to think maybe the caregivers who worked with Kim, maybe they approached their other patients differently because of what they learned from her. Who knows? Maybe the other residents at the center might have discovered, pieces of themselves through their interactions with her. Her mother and her stepfather, who devoted their lives to helping Kim have, the fullest, happiest life possible, undoubtedly carry her influence with them in everything they do. And these impacts aren't quantifiable. They can't be measured in dollars or productivity metrics, but they are so real and so much more valuable than those other measurements. And Kim and people like Kim will continue to shape our world in ways that we can't even imagine. So, what do I hope you'll remember from this episode? First, I hope you'll remember Kim, not just a name or a concept, but as a real person who loved genuinely and purely, and as a person who was friendly and determined and a person who mattered. Second, I hope that you will challenge any notion, whether from politicians or the media or even your own thinking, that human worth can be measured by productivity or ability or economic contribution. These metrics may matter in business, but they fall woefully short in capturing the value of a human life. And then finally, I hope you will reflect on the purpose your own life serves. You know, not just what you do or produce, but in who you are and how you affect others, how your existence and your choices and your decisions and your actions affect others. The ripples that we can create through love and kindness and compassion, they spread so much further and last so much longer than anything we might try to build or achieve. So, Kim's life had a purpose. Kim's life had value. Kim's life mattered. And so do all of the other people out there right now who are struggling with differences, whether they be intellectual or, diseases or birth defects. Every single one of us matters. And I thank you for listening to me today. I really wanted to share that. She's been on my mind whole lot, especially lately. She always is. But here the last few months, she has really I've felt her presence in my heart more than I have in a while, and I'm gonna hang on to that, and I hope you will too. So, I don't have anything else to say, guys. Love you. Bye.